everybody. Welcome to this program. Our first speaker is Dr. Chandrasekhar. I don't think Dr. Chandrasekhar needs any introduction. We all are very familiar with Dr. Chandrasekhar. I invite Dr. Chandrasekhar for his talk.
As we are all aware, the life expectancy of our population has substantially increased with whatever the efforts we have done and whatever the efforts we have not done. So whatsoever, with the aging population, the burden on the health system as well as the social responsibility do increases. As I mentioned repeatedly, it is the efforts of those when they were young is what is responsible for us to live better today. So that is one of the reasons we need to make ourselves dedicated to take care of them as and when we should and we have to. And elderly population, as we look, they are little different from the younger populations. When this elderly population walks into any of the clinic with musculoskeletal system, the basic approach of symptoms, signs, features, and the history collections, data collections, though remains basic, it needs little more meticulous understanding and a careful approach because there are few stumble blocks, few rough roads which we need to negotiate. What I mean here is the basics of taking the history, basics of examination remains the same. It's not going to very drastically differ from a normal person or a person at the middle age, but there are a lot of differences which we need to see when we are trying to work with elderly population with the complaints of pains and aches. See, what we need to understand from the very basic when we are collecting the history is we need a careful questioning and a patient listening. Quite often, they will be slow in communicating. They may come out with one by one with their symptoms, and you may feel that there are more symptoms than what you are expecting, so you need to carefully pick up each and every symptoms. Quite often, it may not be surprising, he may answer 2 or 3 different answers for the same questions. If you ask, where is the pain? He may answer differently, and where otherwise is the pain, he may answer differently. It's not that he wants to or he wants to change or put it across, it's that there are some element of communicational confusions which occurs. I mean, this is very well appreciated by all the geriatric musculoskeletal rheumatologists. It's often said that you may have to sometime ask the same question twice or thrice so that you are very clear about what is the signs and symptoms. Adding to that, the impaired communication skill, which may make a block between the communications between you and the elderly, as well as sometimes his perceiving of the symptoms may be problem because of the associated comorbid condition. For example, if there is a neuropathy, there could be a swelling and there could be minimum pain. We may be surprised, he says, I am feeling difficulty to walk. When I put my foot, I find difficult, unstable, I am not able to put my foot with a swelling. He may not tell the quantum of pain what you are expecting with the amount of swelling what you are seeing. The reason could be, there could be a neuropathy associated with this because of his diabetes, or it could be a senile neuropathy which would be impairing the perception of the pain. So even the symptoms could be perceived by them differently from what it could be. So that's why the collection of history data needs a careful attention. You need to be a little more patient, gather the information, interpret the information to the best so that you can correlate what the symptoms are and what the signs are. So in addition to that, while communicating to the elderlies, you need to be very clear whether it could be implicative communications or it could be communicated in a different way. For practical purpose, we can group them as a very wise old man. So you may be talking to a very wise old man. What do we mean here is he may present himself that he knows the signs and symptoms. He may hide some of the information because he feels it may not be relevant to you for making a diagnosis. He may say that, oh no, I have this problem from past 5 years, I don't think it is relevant for you. So when you ask the questions, you are handling a wiser man because he is definitely wise with the aging time, but his perception that what he thinks may not be appropriate when you are communicating with it. Or it could be a childish old man. What we meant here is, especially the elderlies who want more independence may hide some of the symptoms, especially when their caregivers are along with. They may say, no, I can definitely walk for half an hour. If you ask the caregivers, they say, no, hardly he goes out, and he may go once in a while. Whenever he goes, he needs a help along with it. See, what we meant here is, he may be a childish old man because he would like a child, would like to hide some of the signs and symptoms when there are others along with them. The basic reason is he doesn't want his disability being demonstrated across to his caregivers because that may impair his independence at home. So there may be a impairment which may come with his communication to the doctor that I have following limitations, so that may cause few more restriction on him. So don't go out, don't go for shopping, don't go independently. So that's why there could be a restriction in his complaints, what he may going to tell you. So in addition to that, with the age, with the dementia, with the onsetting of dementia, there may be impaired communications. So the communications may not be complete when you are taking the history. So if you feel there are some gaps, it's always worthwhile to ask other caregivers to go out, ask him independently what are the other issues which are there, try to gather as much of information as possible when an elderly walks in with musculoskeletal pains. In addition to that, there is a long history of health and ill health. So he has crossed his 65. He has gone through ups and downs of his life of last 65 years. You need to gather as much of information as possible for a simple reason. It could be a comorbidity which may be responsible for his symptoms, or a drug which he is taking for the comorbidity which may be responsible for his symptoms. For example, the anti-cholesterol drug statins, which can cause myositis. Introduction of statin can cause musculoskeletal pains and aches, which is much more commoner than the pains and aches which occurs because of the other causes. So you need to little more carefully gather the information. What are the other comorbidities he has? What are the drug prescription he is taking? Or it could be a previous radiotherapy which has given, may be responsible for the fibrosis in the lungs causing the chest pain or chest discomfort. Or it could be a recurrence of a malignancy which has been handled quite some time back, maybe 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. So gathering a detailed history of the past becomes an arduous task, unlike a 25 or 30-year-old young man, where it's only a 20-year of history, it's a 60, 65-year of history. A detailing history may be required. It's a long past history. You need to gather both health, ill health history of these elderlies. The next problem is the list of drugs. It's been quoted from various literatures that on an average, after 65, 6 to 8 drugs are taken by these elderlies. So you need to gather what are the drugs these elderly populations are taking, and it's always best to pick it up from the prescription. So it's never be surprised, you may have 3 to 4 different prescriptions from different physicians. In the end game, each prescription may have 6 or 7, but the patient may be taking 2, 3 out of each of these prescriptions. So what I meant here is, you may have 6 prescriptions totaling to 18 drugs, but in the end of the day, patient might have pick up only 6 to 8 drugs out of these prescriptions. So that's how it's both the prescriptions as well as from the detail of the patient's history, that what are the drugs he is taking, what are the additional medications that he may be taking. These details and a list of drugs should be taken in before we figure out the possible differential diagnoses with reference to these patients. And there are some diseases which are specific to elderlies, which are going to be discussed over a period of time. We have the disease like polymyalgia rheumatica, late onset rheumatoid arthritis, GCAs, etc. And even the classical diseases of younger age presents in a different clinical manifestations. For example, rheumatoid arthritis, instead of presenting with definite swelling in the joints, you may just find a diffuse edema. Because of the loose skin, the synovitis may not produce a localized swelling. Instead of localized swelling, you may find entire hands being swollen because of the small joint arthritis. The reason is because of the loose skin, the edema will be more uniform and it may look more like a peripheral edema rather than joint-based synovitis. So even the common diseases may present in a different clinical manifestations. You need to be a little more careful when we are trying to analyze. Overlapping disease may confuse. For quite frequently, a vasculitic lesions in a diabetic patient is always confusing, whether especially when it is in the lower limb, whether it is a vasculitic ulcer or whether it is a diabetic ulcer. The question that always comes is whether to attribute it to which type of ulcer. When there is an associated diabetic neuropathy, the vasculitic ulcer pain may not be as obvious as we see, because the way we differentiate a vasculitic ulcer versus other ulcers are the severe excruciating neuropathic pain which are associated with vasculitic ulcer, which may not be very obvious in elderly, especially when they are diabetic, because of associated diabetic neuropathy. Usually the local region where the vascular ulcer is, if ulcer is more above the shin, unless the classical site of the diabetic ulcer, the depth of ulcer, the margin of ulcers, the slough that is present on the ulcers, these are the things which can help you to differentiate between a vasculitic ulcer versus the diabetic ulcer. Associated neuropathic signs and symptoms as well as vasculopathic signs and symptoms, they should help us in differentiating whether the ulcer is secondary to diabetes or secondary to a rheumatological conditions. So one thing we need to remember when any elderly patient walks in with the musculoskeletal symptoms, we need to remember it's an age prone for malignancies. 1/3 of the malignancies are diagnosed in elderly. The first presentation of a patient presenting may be a simple plain musculoskeletal pains, and especially when the musculoskeletal pains are atypical, doesn't fit into any of the differential diagnosis, neither to a typical rheumatoid, nor to a typical dermatomyositis, nor to any typical definable syndromes, consider a possibility of malignancy. It's always advised a quick, well-planned, thought-of screen for malignancy should be considered in any elderly patient who walks in with a musculoskeletal symptoms. There is a chance of 3 out of 10 of fishing out or figuring out one of the malignancies, and detection of this stage will be much earlier than expected. So as a result, if a patient if elderly population walks in with a musculoskeletal pain, remember and keep malignancy as one of the differential diagnoses unless you are clinically very clear it is not a possibility, or you have done enough workup to exclude this as one of the possibility. So least but very critical when you are thinking about the plan for management of elderly is draw the line of expectation clearly in the early discussion of patient's examination. That is, what is the expectation of the patient and what is the expectation of the relatives. What we meant here is, can you manage this elderly gentleman with musculoskeletal disease with an aggressive disease, aggressive treatment, or should we go for symptomatic management? Or what is the expected point that you are looking at with reference to these patients? So we need to figure out what exactly is both the patients as well as the relative expects out of the treatment strategies that you are going to work with this musculoskeletal system. So have a patience while dealing with them, because he may tell you what he needs from you at the end of the discussion. What I meant here is, just before he walks out, he may tell you, this is what I wanted out of you. That what I meant here is, doctor, you heard me patiently and my pain is half relieved. I am sure your drug will surely help me. So what I meant here is, sometimes a patient's hearing of the musculoskeletal pains, which could be mainly because of the aging processes, if you hear to him what exactly, and if you are convinced that the most of the musculoskeletal pain is because of the degenerative processes, where asking him how to cope up with this disease may give a good relief rather than you giving him some medications. It's, if you see in some of the advices which are given with reference to pain management of osteoarthritis, it always says a phone call, speak to the patient, communicate to him and talk to him that you will be better. It helps a relief of the pain. So what we meant here is, when we are approaching a patient with a musculoskeletal disease in elderly, we need to figure out a detailing of the history, associated comorbid conditions, interpret his symptoms and signs in relation to the comorbidity that patient has, in addition to also interpret it along with the other associated drugs that he is taking. Put these signs and symptoms in a nutshell and try to find out what could be the cause which is responsible for his musculoskeletal diseases. Diagnoses are quite often challenging, and a patient's detailed history will help us to figure out what could be the disease and diagnosis and the right approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the audience?
You were mentioning the difference between vasculopathic ulcer and diabetic ulcer. Both have neuropathy. I mean, diabetic ulcer also has neuropathy. So I couldn't actually differentiate between the two.
Yeah, I mean, see, for example, the location of the ulcers. Usually the diabetic ulcer are more distal, more over the shin areas, whereas the vasculitic ulcer are more proximal, that is more closer to, more above the shin. Pain of the vasculitic pain, if it is present, but usually if there is a diabetic neuropathy, you may not get that much of excruciating pain. If you have seen a patient with a vasculitic ulcer in young age, he complains of extreme pain. He says that I cannot just sleep with this. Whereas a patient with a diabetes, associated diabetic neuropathy, if there is already a total neuropathy, he may not complain of so much of pain. So the ulcers are usually well punched out ulcers. You have a defined margin, and usually it is leaded with more of a granulation tissues unless it is infected. Whereas diabetic ulcer is more often infected, they have more slough, and usually it's not a punched out ulcer, it's usually you have a beveled edge at the edges, and those helps you to differentiate between a vasculitic ulcer as well as diabetic ulcers. But when you come to the signs and symptoms and signs of may be absent because of the presence of neuropathy. So clinically it looks like a diabetic ulcer because anyway he's a diabetic. It's an age or time to get a diabetic ulcer. Often we ignore it. Usually what gives you a clue to think of it is his ESR and CRP. If you see his ESR and CRP, if it is a vasculitic ulcer, usually they are very high. And they also have very high leukocytosis in comparison to the available infection. If there is infected, then it's a different story. If you feel that ulcer is not infected, still he has a very high ESR and CRP, then one need to suspect, am I by chance dealing with a vasculitic ulcer?
Patient with musculoskeletal presentation, which are the clues which will prompt you to look for malignancies?
Some of the textbooks of rheumatology puts it that any elderly with musculoskeletal disease, best to keep it as a malignancy as one of your differential diagnoses. But there are certainly, if these are present, you need to extensively search for the malignancies. Number one, significant weight loss in more than 5 to 8 kilos in last 3 months, and patient looking little more sick than what you expect for the amount of musculoskeletal pain he has. Atypical presentation of a musculoskeletal syndromes. That is, for example, he doesn't fit into rheumatoid arthritis, he doesn't fit into any of the definable musculoskeletal symptoms. Presentation in the form of dermatomyositis, presentation in the form of lupus-like diseases, one need to consider malignancy as one of the serious disease to be excluded. And the patients who are not quickly responding to the typical, say for example, you suspect polymyalgia rheumatica, give him a steroid therapy, he doesn't respond. You see him as a rheumatoid arthritis, treat him with a disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drug, down in 4 to 6 weeks, you don't find much improvement at all with reference to his symptoms, one need to consider the malignancy as one of the serious differential diagnoses and need to exclude that.
Diabetic patient with the various musculoskeletal manifestations, how effectively can these be controlled by just controlling his diabetes? Are they reversible, or what is the ultimate outcome?
Pardon, I couldn't get you, sir.
The musculoskeletal manifestation of a diabetic patient, if the diabetes is controlled effectively, are these symptoms by per se controllable, or they should be treated separately?
No, see, actually there are few of the musculoskeletal manifestations like Dupuytren contracture, the diabetic acropathy, diabetes associated enthesopathies and pains, which are directly caused by diabetes per se. They are well improved on treating them with a good control of diabetes and a good amount of physiotherapy. For example, if they have the acropathy or a contractures, you give them wax bath, wax therapy, tries to manipulate it, they improve upon it. But if it is a different musculoskeletal disease, for example, diabetes and a polymyalgia rheumatica, diabetes with a late onset rheumatoid arthritis, then we need to treat both of them separately. You need to take care of diabetes and simultaneously you need to take care of the associated musculoskeletal disease.
I came across a patient with very much the same presentation that you have mentioned. He came with supposedly low-grade fever, and we thought with chills, and we thought it is UTI. And ultrasound was done at that time, and prostate and all was normal, and also bladder was normal. 5 months later, those symptoms were still persisting. And at that point, CT scan was done and he was found to have metastatic prostate cancer. Could the musculoskeletal pain be because of metastasis in the bones rather than the cancer?
No, it can happen both the ways. Sometime you can have a musculoskeletal pain without Mets being there, or it could be directly because of metastasis. Probably the previous symptoms which he had, the fever, chills, musculoskeletal symptoms which he had, could be a direct paraneoplastic features. The subsequently could be a Mets, but it's very difficult to say. But it is described, you can have both. You can have it as a paraneoplastic manifestations. You can also have as a direct metastasis. In your case, by the time you could detect, he had already had a metastasis that could be directly attributed to the probably metastasis. You can have both the ways.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the excellent presentation.